Uffe Bodin is the head of sports media at Better Collective, and we were just reminiscing. It has been years and years since we began seeing Uffe at international hockey events around the world, and here we are, teammates in one big sports media empire stretching the Atlantic Ocean. Good to see you, Uffe. How you doing?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Matt. Yeah, I remember seeing you in, well, it must have been in Saskatchewan for the World Juniors back in
Right.
2009. It's a long time ago, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I remember the previous year in Ottawa when everybody thought Sweden would win that tournament with such a great team. Let's get into more contemporary matters. First and foremost, Uffe, we've gone across the Atlantic to Sweden to get your take on why Elias Pettersson is not re-signing with the Vancouver Canucks yet. Do you have any theories, my man?
Oh God, if I had, well, Elias Pettersson, I just have to start with that. Like, he's his own man, he goes his own way, as you well know, and God knows what's going on inside his head right now. I think everyone would like to know, but it seems like it seems like he wants to take his time. I guess he wants to sort of get a feeling of where the Canucks are heading. Obviously, this season has been beyond, I guess, anyone's wildest dreams. So, I mean, it should be good. It should be a good sign. I mean, the team is having a great season, and looks like in every way they're heading in the right direction. So, but still, he wants to take his time. I guess it's also just for him to bet on himself. I mean, he's coming up a 100-point season, and he can actually be the first Swede ever to record back-to-back 100-point seasons. So I guess that could do pretty good for his market value as well.
It was a match made in heaven. We all saw the childhood photos of him wearing the Vancouver t-shirt, and everyone just thought, okay, this is just perfect. He wants to come here. I mean, hey, it's a big Canadian market. It's can be a tough market, although he is absolutely deified here. The world at his feet. Would you think that ultimately is a hard existence on him, though, being in the public eye and being so big here in the city, or do you think he gets a kick out of it?
I mean, just from talking to him, he was. We had this big interview opportunity with him this summer in August when the NHL had their media tour here, and he said that, like, one of his biggest dreams is just to sort of get a sense of what it would like to play a playoff game in Vancouver, and obviously this season he will get that opportunity. So, I mean, if the season continues to go like this, I mean, he's going to get, every opportunity to really see what it's like to have a positive experience in a market like that. And I think, at least from my vantage point, I think that will, if he doesn't want to stay after that, then I don't know what could ever make him want to stay. But I think for sure he should resign, and it's probably going to happen this summer.
He even has a countryman across the table, and Patrik Allvin, which, I
was going to say, the scenario, they win game one of the Stanley Cup playoffs at Rogers Arena, and Patrik Allvin goes racing into the dressing room with a contract and a pen.
So, I mean, it's all set up. We can all see, that it does work. Allvin himself needs a contract as well, potentially as well. But talk about what that relationship could be like going forward, especially if the two of them have success as Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't know what their relationship is like. I guess just being able to speak your native tongue should be an advantage in this, I suppose. But
nothing gets lost in translation. You're right.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. No gray areas there. So, I mean, that should really work in their favor. But as I mentioned before, like, Elias is his own man. You never really know what's going on in his mind. So, we hear all these crazy rumors that he wants to go to Chicago. I don't know. I don't give much weight to that, but I can't really find a reason for him not to stay in Vancouver, if I put it that way.
What's Pettersson's profile at home right now? Is he a superstar right now? Is he amongst the biggest active players in the NHL in Sweden, or is it still a growing presence?
No, he was big, right? Because you all remember, like, the last season he had in Sweden was the most spectacular
Golden.
thing we have seen in
Yeah.
ages, like especially from a junior age player. So, I mean, he was big already then, and I think everyone started to understand just exactly how good he was. And obviously, since coming over, it took him a few years, obviously, to really reach that kind of status. But I mean, now I would say he's obviously one of the biggest Swedish names. I mean, William Nylander is also very popular. He's done some great things for the Swedish national team, which also goes a long way in these circumstances. So, but I'd say for sure he's one of the biggest names over here.
Well, and both of them on 61 points as we head into Wednesdays. It's a pretty good derby to be the leading Swedish scorer in the NHL this year. Uffe, help us out with this, because we saw it with the Twins here and Marcus. Alfredsson in Ottawa, Sundin in Toronto. It was like torturous for them to even think about leaving those franchises. There's a sense that Swedish players like to nest and just like to stay with the first team that they find in the National Hockey League. I'm wondering if you can shed any light on that.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing, because I've thought about it too. I don't really have, you know, a good theory on why that is, but I think Swedish players they're good at adapting when coming over, and I think like if they find a spot where they like, I think usually, if they find this is a good spot for me, I think they feel some kind of loyalty towards the organization, like the names you mentioned there. I think that's something that goes for all of those guys, that they were really loyal to their organizations, and that's also because they felt at home. Like, I mean, you can take William Nylander as another example. Like in his interview after signing that contract, he says, "But like Toronto is my home now. It's I've been here so long, and I really feel at home here." So, and I think that goes for all those guys. Like if they find a place, you don't bleep with happy, right? So
yeah.
And I'd say that Canada is a lot like Sweden, so maybe that's why that is. But Henrik Zetterberg and Detroit, Detroit's not very Swedish, so can't find a thread
there. Makes a lot of sense. I mean, you're already adapting once. Why adapt a second time if you feel good in the city you're in? When Patrik Allvin was hired, and we're coming up to 2 years, if we're not 2 years today or this week, he said it was a big day for Swedish hockey. Halfway through, or more than halfway through the NHL season, Uffe, he could be the NHL Executive of the Year. A word or two about what we're seeing from the first Swedish general manager in the National Hockey League.
I mean, at times it's been hard really to tell whether it's him or Jim Rutherford that actually calls the shots. But I mean, I've been impressed. I mean, they've done a lot of changes to the franchise going back to when they started. So, and based on the results this far, I mean, you got to give them credit, right? So I feel like people are really paying attention to stories about Allvin right now. I just see like the stories we post on our websites with Allvin, or when we've had the opportunity to interview him. It's always like people are really curious over here as well, like because as you mentioned, like you don't see a lot of Swedes in positions like that. So it's been impressive, and I think they're really onto something. I mean, are the Canucks ready to be a contender this year? I don't know. I mean, it's a group that don't really have that much experience when it comes to playoffs, at least not in the core group, so to speak. But I'm really looking forward to what's next, because I think there are going to be some changes. I mean, before the deadline and also this summer, that could make the team even better. So really intrigued about what's next.
Lindholm, who may well be the best player available here at the trade deadline, barring a contract extension, and it doesn't look like that's coming, Uffe. What do you think about Lindholm as a Vancouver Canuck, and what do you think Lindholm could bring to any of the suitors here who would be looking at him by the deadline?
It's funny you mentioned, because on our podcast yesterday we discussed his future, and we were sort of assigned with a task to give our sort of advice, like what team would be the best fit for him. And for me, it's the Canucks. Like, especially now when you play, if you're going to play JT Miller and Elias together, then you have sort of a hole on the second line there, and I think he would just slide in perfectly and be sort of a two-way presence that they might have missed since Bo Horvath was traded. And that obviously gives them a really strong second line that obviously, if they want to go deep in the playoffs, that would be enormous. So maybe, I mean, a lot of people have been talking about Jake Gensel for good reasons, but I mean, if you continue to have Elias and JT Miller together, I mean, then I think Elias Lindholm would obviously be a better fit.
And Lindholm staying after a trade would sort of make sense from a strategic standpoint. It may not make sense from an NHL salary cap standpoint is the only thing, because this would be Lindholm's last chance to get big, significant NHL money, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, he's been paying well below his market value for the past at least 3 years or so. So yeah, I mean, he's gonna have a big payday if he goes on to July 1st. That's for sure. So I don't know if the Canucks are ready to go that far. Having a lot of young players in the pipeline too that are really interesting. So I don't know if that's the best fit for them. But I mean, if they want to go for it this year, I think he presents them with a really interesting choice.
What do you make
of course, A.J. Rutherford draft pick way back when with the Carolina Hurricanes.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me, what's he like as a guy, Uffe? Like, describe Lindholm a little bit, the personality.
I mean, outside rink, I would say he's very laid back and Swedish, if you put it that way. But
into the mold,
yeah. But I think what a lot of people probably don't understand about him is he really hates to lose. I mean, he's a really fiery guy on the ice. I think we saw that, was it last week when he put someone into the bench or something, like with a hit. And he's a really fiery guy. I don't think a lot of people understand it because he's so laid back and pretty calm outside the ice. But and I mean, really good two-way presence. I mean, he's not having his best year, but a lot of Calgary Flames players are not having the best year, and haven't had for the past 2 years. So it could be, I mean, if he comes to an environment like the Canucks where everything is going right now, I think that would benefit him and obviously benefit the Canucks as well.
It could be a good
Hoglander with Lindholm with the fiery Swede line.
Yeah.
Before you go, let's talk about Hoglander because he burst onto the scene in the post-lockout shortened season, or post-COVID shortened season, and looked like he was just posed for superstardom. He took a step back after that and now has regained the scoring touch, has added some defensive thoughts to his game a little bit. Does this surprise you? Did you think he would get it back in regular NHL play? Because there was a lot of asterisks beside that post-COVID season, but now in the course of regular play, he's making it work again. Did you see a 20-goal scorer in Nils Hoglander?
You know what? I thought he would get traded last season. I was almost convinced of that. But, I mean, you could see a big difference. I mean, he was not a player that Bruce Boudreau obviously liked. I mean, they even sent him to the AHL last year. So, but under Tuckett, and he seems to me to be like a Tuckett guy because, like, he has a lot of grit in his game beside the finesse and the scoring touch that he's shown this season. So he's a player that can actually fill different roles, but 20 goals this year, no, I didn't have that on my bingo card, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So he's been a pleasant surprise to me, absolutely. But I think like a guy like that, when he has confidence, I mean, he can do, I mean, just look at the goal he scored against the New York Rangers the other week, which was just spectacular. I mean, I think like the last few years in the SHL, like he had a goal of the year, like every year, because he's capable of scoring these incredible goals that make your jaw drop to the floor. So I I mean, I'm really intrigued by his potential. Like, can he even take it further? Can he be a steady top 6 guy even? Not sure at this point, but I mean, this season is a big step forward for him, and just gaining the trust of Rick Tocchet is going to go. It's going to mean a lot to him.
Been a night and day turnaround for Jonathan Lekkerimäki, Uffe. Last year at this time, we were so worried about him coming off that World Juniors where he was getting benched and couldn't find ice time, and we were the regular season, which wasn't going very well. And then he had that incredible playoffs, and then he started strong, and now, lo and behold, World Junior MVP. What's been behind this fantastic turnaround from Lekkerimäki, and how ready do you think he'd be to come on over and play for the Canucks as soon as next year?
Yeah, what's behind it? I think, like, without knowing him, but I mean, I think he gained a lot of confidence. You mentioned the playoffs he had, and like he had a pretty significant injury before that, so he sort of, I think it took the chance to really reset after that tough start to the season. And I think this year he came out really strong. It proves that he had a really good summer, because like the skill has always been there. It's always been a question of, just with Elias Pettersson before he came over, it was always a question of like, what's his physical status, like how strong can he be, like, because I mean, Lekkerimaki is a pretty small guy, and he's pretty, small in his body too. It's not like the guy that will build a lot of muscle, but just from what he's shown this year is a big step for me. I mean, especially going from Allsvenskan to playing the SHL and really scoring there at, I mean, basically impressive pace. So I think just the physical growth and confidence and getting an opportunity to play consistently has meant a lot. And will he be ready for the NHL? I don't know. Maybe, I mean, considering what the Canucks have right now, maybe it's good that if he starts in the AHL next year, or I mean, when his season is over, I know he's going to go over and probably play with Abbotsford. So I think that might be a sort of a good start for him to ease him in, because I don't really see, if he doesn't play the power play or have a top 6 scoring role, I don't really know like if there's a point to having him in the NHL. So I think he would probably be better off maybe starting out in Abbotsford, just getting a feel for what it's like to play pro over at your side of the pond, and take it from there.
They might need the cheap talent though, if all these big cap hits.
Yeah, we'll see.
That's true.
That's true. Of course, that's part of the puzzle now in the National Hockey League. Uffe, it's been wonderful catching up, my friend. Thank you for the time here. Wish you the best there in Sweden. We'll catch up down the road here soon.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
This clip brought to you by Betway. Must be 19 plus to play. Please play responsibly.